Now, frankly, it's astonishing to think that one small bite from a tick can have a devastating impact on your health, all depending on how quickly you react to it. But that's exactly what happens with Lyme disease. It's a bacterial infection carried by ticks, which causes neurological damage and, frankly, crushing fatigue. Alice Reeve from Cheltenham was diagnosed with Lyme disease a couple of years ago now, and we first spoke to Alice about a year ago. We've been following her campaign to raise awareness about the disease, which campaigners say is often not recognised by GPs at all. And as I appreciate, time is of the essence, because if it is treated quickly, then it can be, nothing much, frankly. But if it isn't, then very, very difficult things can ensue. Well, now NICE have issued new guidelines to help doctors spot the disease more quickly. Is it good news? Well, yes and no. Alice joins me from her home in Cheltenham today. Morning to you, Alice.
Morning, Anna.
Remind us, if you will, what it is and how you got it, you think.
Okay, I contracted Lyme disease probably back in 1999, but it wasn't picked up till 2015. And
Wow.
I got basically other diagnosis, and my health was just falling apart. And my biggest problem was actually major inflammatory arthritis that's attacked all the joints. Also the fatigue, the neurological symptoms, and the terrible fatigue.
What kind of impact has that had on your life then, before and now afterwards for you, Alice?
I was somebody who was very active back in '99, was doing a lot of travelling overseas. Now I can't work. I'm stuck at home most of the time, and I spend my life at hospital appointments.
In fact, you're speaking to us from your home because your illness leaves you so tired that actually, getting out, planning a trip, even from Cheltenham to Gloucester, how badly would that set you back?
Well, it's not just the fatigue; it's the brain fog. It's also my mobility. Unfortunately, because the joints have been attacked so much by the Lyme, I need surgery, and at the moment I can't have surgery because they're worried about infection.
The key point, and it's worth you saying this, I mean, I sort of highlighted it a little bit there, is the time it takes to get a diagnosis for Lyme disease can be crucial, isn't it? Because if you are get bitten by a tick, you're walking the dog in woods or, some sort of area, scrubland, you get bitten by a tick and you realise quickly, actually, a course of antibiotics, and it's as if almost nothing's happened, if it's found quickly and dealt with.
Yes, it's absolutely vital. But the problem is sometimes you will get a bite and you won't see it. So that can cause problems with diagnosis. And also they look for the bullseye rash, and not everybody gets that.
Yes, the people who do get it, it does look like a bullseye, doesn't it? It's the bites in the middle, but then there's sort of like these extra circles of pink inflammation or whatever around it.
So not everybody will get that.
Do you have any remembrance of having had any tick bite at any point around that time?
I did have a bite, and I did develop also cellulitis, but at the time it was just said insect bite, and obviously I wasn't put on the correct treatment. But I also got a second bite in 2004 on the same spot in Pitfall Park.
Right.
Because my garden's in Pitfall Park.
So it was the perfect place to go for a walk or take the dog or whatever. And had you even heard of Lyme disease at that point?
I think I probably heard about Lyme disease probably around that time. I remember a neighbour said, "Haven't you sure you haven't got Lyme disease?" And I said, "But surely the doctors would have checked for this." And because I've also been under rheumatology, I was expecting, this is the type of thing they check for. But the other problem we've got, the testing is unreliable. So even if I had a test, I have a lot of immune problems, so I won't produce antibodies, which the test is looking for.
Yeah, this is one of the difficulties. Alice, hang on there if you will. Alice Reeve, then talking to us from her home in Cheltenham, diagnosed with Lyme disease a couple of years ago, but believed to have contracted the illness many years ago, a bacterial infection caused by a tick bite. And if it's treated, immediately or very swiftly, just a course of antibiotics, then you get on with your life. Unfortunately, if it's missed or for whatever reason it's not recognised as Lyme disease, then it can have, as we're hearing there, quite devastating impact. Well, there are new NICE guidelines that have just been released to help doctors spot the disease more quickly. Is it good news? Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you? But it's yes and no, apparently. We'll find out more in a moment. No. King, good morning to you. So it is just bonkers, really, to think that one small bite from a tick, you go walking the dog and you're in sort of that longer grassy area in the woods or something, and potentially can have a devastating impact on your health. But that's exactly what happens with Lyme disease. It's a bacterial infection carried by ticks. And if it's not treated very swiftly, that seems to be the key. Speed is the key. It can cause neurological damage and crushing fatigue. Alice Reeve from Cheltenham knows that only too well. She was finally diagnosed with Lyme disease a couple of years ago, but unfortunately that was, many years after she first had been bitten. And we've been following her campaign to raise awareness about the disease, which campaigners say is often not recognised by doctors. Now NICE has issued these new guidelines to help doctors spot the disease more quickly. So good news. Well, Alice says yes and no. So let's return to her home in Cheltenham. Morning to you, Alice, again.
Morning, Anna.
So the assumption would be, any kind of recognition from NICE on new guidelines to help doctors spot it easily, more quickly, seems to be brilliant news. But, is it?
Yes, in some ways it's good in the sense it's going to increase awareness. It's going to allow access to social care. And it's just basically going to get people diagnosed quicker. But the problem we've got is NHS Choices have removed the chronic Lyme disease from the website, and they're now calling it post-infectious Lyme disease. So this would suggest that they feel the bacteria is cleared. Now, the problem also in NICE feel that co-infections aren't a problem with Lyme disease. When you get a bite, you don't just get Lyme normally, you will get a host of infections. That then knocks your immune system down, so you're able to catch other infections. The problem NICE has when they're, doing their guidelines is they can't use animal studies. So, for example, with monkeys, they found the Lyme bacteria after prolonged antibiotics still there, and they can't use test tube studies where they find the spirochetes, which is the Lyme bacteria, turns into cyst form of biofilms, which needs a different form of treatment.
So can it flare up then? Is that what you're saying, sort of later on? It can be dormant and then emerge again? There's over 700 peer-reviewed articles that says there is persistent infection. It doesn't go away. You can't kill that bacteria. And this is a big problem. At the moment, NICE don't have a problem with about blood transfusion. Now, if you have ME, which I was originally told I had, you can't give blood. But somebody who's been treated for Lyme disease can give blood, and that is very worrying. There's also the problem with mother to baby. It can be transferred. I think the problem is they just don't know enough. But if they don't know enough, they shouldn't be allowing us people giving blood. Well, we're speaking to your MP, Alex Chalk, shortly to tell us about the new role. In fact, you're Chair of Justice for Lyme, is that right?
I'm a co-founder, yes, with Deb Collins. So we are trying to push things up at Parliament level.
And you've got a protest coming up, haven't you, in Westminster on the 1st of May?
Yeah, that's between 11 and 2 at Old Palace Yard. Unfortunately, I can't go due to health, but there will be a lot of people attending.
But there is a petition, I understand, as well.
Yes, there's a petition against NICE guidelines, and basically that is looking at some of the issues that I've just brought up.
Okay. Alice, thank you very much. You can hang on there if you'd like to and hear what your MP, Alex Chalk, has to say. We'll be speaking to him in a moment. The new NICE guidelines say, that it'll help doctors spot the disease more quickly, and speed is of the essence. But Alice Reeve, then, who experiences Lyme disease and struggling with it every day, says that's good news and not so good news. More on that as we speak to Alice's MP for Cheltenham, Alex Chalk, next. So hearing then from Alice in Cheltenham, who's experiencing and living with Lyme disease. She was diagnosed finally 2 years ago, but says she believes it's been in her system from years before that, all because of a bite from a tick. It starts as something so, innocent and simple, but unfortunately it isn't at all. And Alice already has the support of her MP, Alex Chalk. The Cheltenham MP has been working with her to lobby other politicians, and he joins me now from our Westminster studio. Good morning to you, Alex. Nice to speak to you.
Morning, Anna.
Now, you started working with Alice and some of the other constituents soon after you were elected when it came to Lyme disease, wasn't it? Why did you decide to do that?
Well, I mean, I'd just like to begin actually by paying tribute to Alice, because she has been such a dogged and determined campaigner in respect of an issue which I can say 2 years ago was deeply unfashionable. People were talking about Lyme sufferers in a very disparaging terms, some even questioning whether it existed. But she made the case so powerfully, together with other sufferers, that it seemed to me she had a point. Their voice wasn't being heard, and I wanted to do something about it. And elsewhere in the world, this is a big deal. Something like 300,000 people suffer in the United States, about 65,000 in Europe. And if our climate becomes warmer and wetter, we can see those numbers start to increase in the UK as well. So it seemed to me this was an issue elsewhere in the world. We weren't talking enough about it in the UK. The consequences for individuals, utterly devastating. So we had to do a bit more.
That's what struck you about the stories you heard. I wonder, for me, when I first spoke to Alice, about 18 months ago, a year ago, it was just the difference that speed of diagnosis could make on somebody's long-term future.
Absolutely right. You've hit the nail on the head. What is so sort of depressing and saddening is when you see people who've had their lives totally blighted, people who could make an enormous contribution, and it's all entirely preventable. And so I guess that's what really, really motivated me about it. And now, in the last 2 years, it is extraordinary how things have changed. So we've had people coming out. Matt Dawson, the rugby player, has been talking about how he suffered from it. People in the States, sort of Shania Twain, Avril Lavigne, these household names have been talking about it and bringing it to the open. And so the key now is, as you say, more emphasis on early diagnosis, and the NICE guidelines are a really important part of that. And I've spoken to some doctors who say, it really is transformational in terms of the speed of getting antibiotic intervention early. Now, I just want to make this point, if I may, about Alice's concern, quite rightly, about long-term chronic sufferers. But, the reality is, speaking to doctors, it is incredible. Is incredibly complex, because once you get to people who've suffered from many, many years, it becomes this great imitator. It looks a bit like ME, a bit like fibromyalgia, and it's extremely difficult to treat. And that's why, we're having 6 sessions in Parliament as part of the all-party parliamentary group to see if we can improve this kind of treatment. But make no mistakes, it is fiendishly complex and very, very difficult to address.
We were hearing from Alice saying, this the new NICE guidelines. Yes, there is very positive because it's urging and sort of trying to help GPs identify it much more quickly, but it's not all good. So, are you happy with the NICE guidelines? What do you think about the progress?
I think the NICE guidelines are a giant leap forward. I don't think there could be any question about that. So I was looking at them again this morning, and there's these great flow charts which are of real assistance to GPs. If you see these symptoms, then to get these tests and on all this kind of stuff. So it is extremely helpful diagnostic tool. And exactly the point that you were making before, early diagnosis really changes lives and means that people can live fulfilled and complete lives. Now, there is this residual issue about how do you provide the best possible treatment for those people who weren't properly diagnosed, often not just years ago, decades ago. And the truth is, having spoken to some doctors, there is no clear consensus about it. It is extremely difficult, but she's right to raise it, and she's right to raise it with her customary passion and conviction. And we are going to look into this. We've got 6 sessions of the APPG to take evidence from experts, and we will do everything we can, and I will do everything I can as her MP to improve the quality of treatment for long-term sufferers. They're not to be forgotten. Their plight is very real, and we've got to do everything we can as a society to help them.
Alice, do you believe that what Alex is doing is enough? I mean, are you some nice compliments coming your way there?
No, Alex has been great. And he's very popular amongst the Lyme patient community. But he's the right man for the job as a human rights barrister. But the other problem with the NICE guidelines, they're saying like complex cases like mine, send to a specialist. Now, we just don't have Lyme specialists in this country. We have infectious disease specialists, but they don't know enough about Lyme. I've been under 2 different hospitals, and they actually they will say that I know more than they do. So we're stuck.
Yeah. Well, let's hang on there a moment, because we had a call from Janet in Abbeymead, who has this to say.
My friend was concerned about her daughter-in-law. She thought she had Lyme disease. They went to the doctors, and he said there was no reliable test, only in Germany. So my friend sent the test to Germany. It cost about £300 or £400, and they sent the results back. Fortunately, it wasn't Lyme disease, but it was something else that hadn't been picked up, and the German people sent the antibiotics back to treat that. But apparently that was the only way she could find out quickly whether it was Lyme disease or not.
Well, Alex Chalk, sending things off to Germany, that's not the first I've heard of that when it comes to trying to get a diagnosis of Lyme. Surely that's shocking in this day and age that's what we're having to do.
Absolutely right. And the NICE guidelines say that, in fact, those tests can take place in the UK. But there's no doubt, I think, looking at this fairly, that we're playing catch-up as a country. Now, Germany's got much more woodland than us. They've got a much higher incidence of Lyme, and it seems they've got a more entrenched understanding of the condition. We have in the order of 3,000 diagnoses every year. It's many, many more in Germany. But make no mistake, if current trends continue, it's likely that our numbers are going to go up. And of course, we've got to have the best possible diagnosis and treatment here in the UK. And I've made crystal clear, I've said this in Parliament, both in the chamber and outside, that we should be having the gold standard in terms of diagnostic tests in the UK. Not least because a stitch in time saves 9. A bit of investment in solving it early will save hundreds of thousands of pounds in social care and all the sorts of bits and pieces further down the track.
Sure, but so you've been lobbying your parliamentary colleagues. What have you achieved?
Well, what we've got is, well, first of all, the NICE guidelines, as I say, which is this huge step forward. But even more than that, the Department of Health has now commissioned 3 separate reviews on diagnosis, treatment and transmission. So those are clinically driven reviews, all evidence-based, and those are expected to publish in the summer of this year. So there is more evidence that is coming. That is critically important. So we're on the right path, but as always with these campaigns, you're just trying to push it along as fast as possible and completely as possible. But let make no mistake, over the last 2 years, the position has been transformed. You've gone from a situation where Lyme sufferers were being disparaged in some quarters as Lyme loonies, no suggestion that they were somehow making it up, to it now being recognised that this is a serious condition, it is treatable, and that we need to raise our game. And the game has been raised, but we're not quite there yet.
Alex Chalk, MP for Cheltenham, then Alice Reeve in Cheltenham too. Thank you very much both.